We are now live. Just so that everybody knows, and so Gage knows, because I don't think he can hear me particularly well right now, which is moderately concerning. Hello, Gage.
I can hear you, Mike.
Oh, delightful. Well, in that case, I'm going to talk about what we're doing right now, which is the Corner of Hot Takes in Ontario. Episode 4. We're going to probably complain quite a bit about some early spring training moves that are probably incidental and don't matter all that much. But that's why we're here. That's my cat complaining in the background, which is unfortunate. She's right here. She had a tough day. But we're going to move forward.
She's mad about the moves, too.
Yeah, she's not thrilled. She's a big Yandy Diaz fan. But what are you going to do? Nevertheless, first we have to talk about our sponsor, Minuteman Tickets. They're pretty dope. Gives you access by phone at 614-943-3000. If you want to have a phone call instead of an uncomfortable app experience or one where you never really know when your purchase is done, give Minuteman Tickets a call. They're a ton of help. Once again, 614-943-3000. All right. So we have a couple of moves today. We have BJ Upton is cut and waived. Well, released. Whatever.
Melvin
Nomenclature
Upton.
is irrelevant. Go ahead.
Melvin Upton.
Sorry. I was mostly just doing that to bother you because I know it does.
No, it doesn't bother me.
Is it Bo?
Him.
I think it bothers
It's
Bo.
Bodie and Gerbs.
Gerbs. Jeez. They all have such bleeding hearts. Anyway, the Upton fellow that we once possessed is no longer ours. Ryan Hannigan, also gone. The mentor, the catcher mentor.
Now, we knew Hannigan was going, though.
Yeah. I guess the other big ones are we had Mr. Diaz go to AAA, Mr. Haas go to AAA, and then Mr. Stamets go to AAA. None of those were super surprising. They are somewhat frustrating, but I don't think any of them are surprising. What are your initial thoughts?
No, like we had talked about before on the pod, I mean, Stamets and Diaz are pretty fun utility options if managed correctly, but we kind of always knew it was going to be Gio or Egon or now the new one and only Rob Refsnyder.
Yeah, I guess the Upton one is the most surprising part, and it sort of seems to sort of lock in Rajai Davis on this roster in 2018. Do you think that's the case, or are we getting ahead of ourselves if we assume that Rajai Davis is breaking with the club?
I think it's got to be the case. I mean, Greg Allen, like we've talked about before, even though he's hung around this long, he's still not optioned anywhere, by the way. Even though he's hung around this long, I think eventually he'll be headed to Columbus just because he has options remaining. And Raja seems like the likely choice. We know Francona values those type of guys, the ones that have played for him before, no matter how effectively.
Yeah, I guess it's unfair to pick on Rajai. He was good in 2016. I think the reality just is like he's not good anymore, or he could fill his role in 2016. Like he's not good now. He's bad, very bad.
His 2016 was great, and he helped the team a lot actually throughout the year with stolen bases, and he hit okay too. I think he hit pretty serviceably against lefties that year, but last year it just fell off a cliff. He couldn't even hit lefties.
And I mean, that's just sort of something that happens when you're 37 years old. The Davis Upton thing is like the most uncomfortable, I think, because like on other teams, like getting sort of like pedantic about the fourth or fifth outfielder spot may seem kind of weird, but on a team where Geyer's not healthy, Brantley's playing his first real spring, MLB spring game on Wednesday. Geyer's close-ish to healthy, but we don't really know. Chisenhall has had some calf issues popping up, which is something that he missed probably 30 games for last year. And Zimmer the other day missed today because he had some soreness as well, and he's going to miss 1 or 2 more days. And this is a team with like really huge health error bars, and they made a call pretty early in spring training on Rajay Davis versus Melvin Upton.
Yeah, and it doesn't really help that none of those guys are concrete. I'm going to give you 4 WAR, but I'm not here to sell you on Melvin Upton. He didn't even play Major League Baseball last year, right? He never saw the majors.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a significant chance that Melvin Upton flops. I just think the prospects of Melvin Upton going out there and hitting lefties a little bit are a lot better than 37-year-old Davis at this point. And that's no disdain for Davis at all. He's just not an effective Major League player at this point.
Yeah, screw Davis. I have disdain. I disdain him. I have much disdain for him. Now, I guess the really heartbreaking point is like perhaps the most interesting sort of like right-handed bat upside play is cut when we really have almost zero reason. All right, not zero. Maybe there's a 60% chance Geyer is ready for opening day. Maybe there's a 75 to 80% chance Brantley is really ready to go opening day. And we just don't have a strong, like, actual probability understanding of who's going to be ready for opening day. So cutting one of your, 6 best options for 5 outfield spots is, like, kind of weird to do on March 19th with 10 days till the season opens and a lot of injury clouds.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep harping on this, too. The Indians have they have a wide gap, or a seemingly wide gap between them and the Twins, who just lost their starting shortstop for half the year. I feel like that is when you have the wiggle room to make the upside play. You can't, like, Davis might have a better baseline than Upton. I might not even argue you on that, but the Indians aren't in the baseline business with their outfield right now.
Yeah, and I'm just not sure that's that true either. I mean, like, Davis, like, is coming off a year that, like, he's a bad month from being out of baseball. I think we're, like, sort of, I mean, okay, maybe he's, like, 25th man on a team and a base runner on a team with an actually good outfield, so that's unfair. But, like, he was a 0 WAR player. He's projected for between, like, 65 and 75 WRC plus. This is a guy who's, like, a solid outcome is being 20% below league average offensively and is a bad defender now. I just don't think there's a floor there even with Davis, other than, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, at least with Davis, you have a marketable skill set, even if it's not major, that you can hang your hat on. His wheels, right? I mean, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a bit here because trying to see it where they're seeing it that is not just Terry Francona legacy play.
Yeah, well, legacy matters a lot, I guess. Why does Rob Refsnyder have legacy?
Because he plays 14 different positions.
That's a lot of positions, Gage. Do you mean that?
Yandy Diaz plays 0 positions.
Apparently. Yeah, for a team that is just stacked with a lefty-heavy lineup, just cutting maybe your best in-house. Basically, you sent out your 2 best in-house lefty pitching hitters today, right? I mean, other than the guys who are like starters, like your mix and match guys. You sent out Yandy and Melvin Upton, who basically have the highest upside of anybody left in, on the 40-man against left-handed pitching or close to the 40-man.
I mean,
you cut them both today, and you have a, reason to be fearful against left-handed pitching this year.
No, and I agree with that completely. And Davis isn't that guy at all, even if he did. If you want to expand on that at all, you sent out Richie Schaefer too.
Didn't we have a Richie Schaefer
fight? They don't buy
fight
him.
Already? We had a Richie Schaefer fight, I think.
I think so, but he's a big right-handed power hitter. I mean, who can play corner outfield allegedly. I've never seen him out there, but.
Well, I mean, that's what Michael Brantley does, right?
Early with the Brantley snark, huh?
I mean, he's going to come back post, what was it? What surgery did he have? Ankle?
Some kind of ankle surgery.
So he's going to come back slower than ever for a guy who's one of the slowest left fielders in baseball, and I'm going to be real excited to watch him play defense this year. And
hey,
further injury.
Progressive Field's an easy left field.
We agree on that. We do. But damn it, he's so unathletic, and it's just a higher injury risk. Like that, whatever. All right. I think people asked us.
He's got a little bit of an arm.
Did some people ask us some questions today? I think they did. Some fools.
Bodie piped in with something about who's the best healthy outfielder on the Indians right now, which kind of is a segue from that.
With the answer being that there are no healthy outfielders. Tyler Naquin being the only healthy.
And Greg Allen.
My boy Greg. I'm telling you, you keep just dumping. Everybody keeps dumping on him, like making this team, and I sort of get it. But like today was the day that if you thought today was the day that if he didn't have good odds of making decent odds of making this team, he would have been sent down.
I agree with that.
This is like the last major round of cuts. So, like when he didn't go with the Diaz cuts and he survived the Upton cut, it definitely seems like he's a legit option. I don't know if that's just like a hedge in terms of like
Rajai gets hurt,
like Brantley and whoever starts in the DL, maybe Allen breaks and then gets sent down.
What if they all start on the DL?
I mean, how crazy is like a Naquin, Zimmer, Allen week 1 outfield?
Rajai will be getting a lot of PT.
Damn it. What do we have? Is there anything about spring training we should be optimistic about right now? Because it feels like we've gone really negative on a couple episodes. What should we be optimistic about?
Your boy Kipnis?
He's your boy too. We're very amped about Jason. He's doing good things. He's a prick, but he's doing very good things on the baseball field.
He's Jason Kipnis. Lindor's hit the ball well, right?
Yeah.
And Jose Ramirez seems to be doing Jose things. There are just not many concerns from the mainstays in spring training, which is a huge takeaway, right?
Yeah, that's the great thing. Like, I don't really give a damn if Lonnie Chisnall's hurt because he's super replaceable because he's kind of garbage. So, like, just doing that because Bird doesn't listen. If he listens, maybe it would
no hedging. It's just straight kind of garbage.
He's, you know what? Post a 2-war season, call me back. You're 30. I'm done. Okay?
So, we know Kipnis is back to second base now. And we know Hosey's back to third, right?
Yeah.
Would it have made any sense to not completely isolate yourself on that before spring training?
No.
I mean,
I just don't think it was that hard to say, hey, Kipnis is our second baseman. And then if Brantley's like really hurt and is going to miss a month, you say, hey, extraordinary circumstances. The best thing for us is if Kipnis plays left field for a month.
So you wouldn't have gotten any work in left field?
No, not. I mean, unless I was like forced to. I do partially think that like, I mean, the Indians just dropped this dude in center last year. I think playing left field in Cleveland, like we talked about, is something the Indians just like don't really give a darn about.
So I'm just coming at this from the perspective of your outfield is completely banged up and a huge question mark. You could maybe plug a bat like Kipnis out there, and then you have, but they have no commitment to Yandy, so I don't know what I'm talking like. They have no desire to get Yandy on that major league roster, or else they would have done that from the beginning, probably. Because it doesn't seem like they fully trust Yandy in the outfield at all.
Which is kind of crazy because, like, athletically, he should be decent. I mean, he's a super athletic dude. His sprint speed's pretty solid. I don't know.
I just go back to that series. I know it shouldn't matter, but he had a disaster series in Toronto there last year. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was real bad. That was real bad.
And we know how Francona likes to take those things. So every time somebody says Antonetti gives Francona a call, maybe we should get Yandy out there in left field for a couple games. Francona hangs up.
I think he sends him like a text with a gif of like Diaz dropping that ball in left field, which to defend Diaz, like I'm not even sure Brantley gloves. Okay,
No,
whatever.
No, but I mean, it wasn't even just the one play. He was taking some bad routes altogether. Yeah. But
which is kind of like, okay, you threw him in the outfield last year, like that's gonna happen. It's weird to me when we have like limited patience with that.
Especially considering we go back to anybody can play left field in Cleveland attitude.
Which like I'm really cool with, you know, Travis has written about this, Travis Sawchik a little bit. I've written about this. You've written about this. Like the Indians have sort of in some ways decided that like punting outfield defense with the fly ball revolution and like spiking home run rates, spiking strikeout rates, especially on a team with huge K rates and like pretty good ground ball rates. Like it makes a ton of sense for the Indians punting on defense in the outfield. And they're willing to do it when it's like Kipnis and Chisenhall, who have like no business playing center field. But when it's Yandy Diaz, who's had like, you know, a couple months to pick it up, it's all of a sudden like it's a big deal. Everybody, it's a big deal. It's like, come on, like Kipnis made a decent play last year in center, but that guy is slow for a second baseman. He does not belong in center field, and he only does if you buy into like this route they're taking, which I sort of do. But you can't like accept certain things like that and then be like really conservative about your left field play.
No, and I get the punting outfield defense, and I get what you're saying about Yandy. It's just if they had any commitment to him at all, they would have found a way to get him at third base even. But It just seems like they have deprioritized him so much that it's kind of frustrating from a guy who maybe doesn't buy into his ability to change his swing all that much, but thinks he can be effective hitting the ball the way he is still.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much I buy out of like the Francona. I don't know. I don't know what I buy anymore.
So let's take this Yandy thing. You don't think he can be a 110, 115 WRC plus serviceable player without profile changes in the majors?
Oh, I think he can. I've definitely argued for that. I definitely think that. No, I mean, the Francona thing, I think he's making changes.
Oh, I gotcha.
I think that one of the good things that Tito does potentially that we rake him over the coals for is that I think there's a decent amount of time where like players make changes and sometimes they don't go well. And like he gives them like cover from the organization about not making changes or about making changes so that like players can feel confident doing them without a lot of like public beatdown. And I think that really might be the case here. I mean, look, I think to me, it's like, it's hilarious to me when someone like say Jason Kipnis, they go in and interview him and he's like, I don't buy into launch angle at all. And it's like, well, you ran a 30% fly ball percentage for your entire career. In the last 2 years, you've run 40%. And, you know, that shit just doesn't happen. So, like, you change something, and that's a result. But it's one of those things where, like, Francona's always going to, like, back his players' hitting philosophy or whatever's going on. And I think that may be inherently valuable, but it's, like, kind of annoying press-wise.
That's fair. And I think that's part of being the player's manager that he is. He's going to be too willing to go to bat for things sometimes, and maybe it helps guys, Kipnis trying to work through something or Diaz trying to work through something, but it just seems like maybe the way he comments about it could be done more effectively. I get what you're saying. I would have to go back and find the exact quote about Yandy, where he says getting him 600 at bats and he'll take off, but they'll never try to give him 600 at bats.
Yeah, I mean that part is ridiculous. And One of the things that I kind of wonder through the tea leaves is if Yandy himself is like actually pretty uncomfortable with playing the outfield corners.
Maybe.
And like, I mean, for him professionally, it's pretty stupid because he's in his like now late 20s and he's blocked by an MVP candidate at third base. So that's not great. But it just seems so weird for them to give up on a guy playing the corners who's that athletic and has a hose of an arm in like a year. I mean, it's just sort of strange to me. It strikes me as a strange organizational decision.
I don't want this to turn into the Yandy podcast, but there's something that we're missing by not giving him a chance, and it's that Yonder Alonso can't hit lefties.
Yeah.
And Yandy was the number one play to platoon to hit. He can play for just throw him at first base and let him play there against lefties.
He was such a good hedge playing first and third and hiding Kipnis and Alonso, swapping back and forth because he can just flip J-Ram over to second. I mean, it's literally just a phenomenal fit on this team, and it's so obvious that it's annoying that it isn't starting the season. And, like, I agree with the notion that, like, we shouldn't get all bent out of shape about, like, day one rosters, especially for, like, young guys. But Diaz is at the tipping point here where, like, this legitimately demonstrates that they don't prioritize, like, his skills, like, on this big league roster, and that's frustrating. Like, if Greg Allen doesn't start the year with the team, I don't really care. This outfield's thin, and they're going to need him for, like, 80 games plus either way, I think, is sort of the reality.
But they've shown a willingness and desire to get Allen the experience. They want to see what he has.
Yeah.
And like even the Yandy thing just goes back to September for me when he was your raking, pretty much playing on a daily basis third baseman. And they just bailed on it for some reason. There's something that happened there where they just bailed on Yandy. Was it didn't he have a minor injury?
Yeah, and I mean, the weird thing is, like, in the second half of the season, like, when they went to him every day for the last, like, 2 months, like you said, he was raking. Like, that dude was hitting really well. He was running, like, 120 WRC plus. Everything was clicking for him offensively.
A game against Boston or something where he went off the wall 3 times or something?
He was a monster in the second half, and then, like, he plays basically the last, like, most of August and September raking, and then, like, on the last day they're like, we're gonna take Urshela with us. That guy. Weirdly, Urshela is hitting like 500 in spring, which is pretty hilarious. They're all singles. They're mostly singles, so that's pretty Urshela, but still enjoying it.
Yeah, and let's change course a little bit here. Sam Isaacs on Twitter brought up something last week that was interesting, and he was just kind of asking, what is your worst Indians take that you can remember?
I wrote a prospect capsule where I said that Corey Kluber just, like, wasn't that good. And to be fair, I don't think anyone saw Corey Kluber coming. And, like, I think the Indians front office might have, but I don't think, like, any public prospect evaluator or whatever, or, like, anyone who looked at his lines was like, hey, this Kluber guy. But, yeah, I really did not anticipate Kluber being close to this good, and I'm super okay with it.
Yeah, I hadn't really dove into everything in the minors really just a few years ago. That's kind of been a more recent thing for me. So the 2014 Jose Ramirez experiment was a disaster for me. And I was really down on Jose Ramirez and wondering why they were playing this guy every day. And if I would have done a little digging, I would have been all right. But like I said, I hadn't really gotten into the minor league scene to dig into that stuff at that point. And I just wanted to bring that up because I knew nothing about that. And same thing with Carrasco. When he was going through his stuff in the pen, we knew his stuff was always there. But it just never seemed like he was going to put it together for me almost.
I was really ready to give up on Carrasco too. I mean, mentally, and I will say, here's my defense against the Kluber thing. Kluber in AAA with the Indians in 2011 ran a 450 FIP and walked 4+ per 9. I mean, I'm just throwing this out there, okay? He just suddenly became a cyborg. And, like, I think we should probably look into that. I think there was probably some scientific tampering that happened. Some sort of...
His curveball wasn't there then, I guess?
Most of it's the cutter. Theoretically, he was, like, taught the cutter that year. That's the narrative that everybody says. But I mean,
the cutter is great, but I almost feel like Kluber could be fine. Like I said, like you said, that's the narrative. The cutter is a great pitch, but if you look at like the pitch values on that stuff, it almost feels like it can be harmful sometimes, and it just seems like it would have to be the curveball for me theoretically.
Well, I mean, the funny thing about Kluber is like he went from a guy who had like basically zero control command to like one of the guys with like some of the best like command of his secondary pitches in all of baseball, which is like
right.
Like it's super like that's where the scouting and that's where player development money is just worth like everything in the world, because I don't think Corey Kluber saw this. So I don't know. But yeah, definitely missed on Kluber. When Mark Reynolds went like ape for the first like month and a half of his Indians tenure, I was on the hey, let's extend Mark Reynolds for 2 years train before we DFA'd him in like August. Definitely missed on that.
Definitely Mark Reynolds raked a little bit last year, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he's a quasi big leaguer. Definitely missed on. Definitely thought Trevor Crowe was going to be a useful big leaguer. Still maintain that if he didn't have serious like back injuries in other places, he would have been fine.
Did he go to Cincinnati afterward for a little bit?
Who, Reynolds or Crowe?
Crowe.
Can't remember. He went to Detroit for a while.
I thought I remembered him playing for the Reds right after, but I was big on Trevor Crowe too. He looked like he just had He looked like he was the mold for it. Like, there's nothing analytical about that at all, but he looked good as a baseball player. We just never saw it come to fruition or light, I guess. But I just found it an interesting topic because we sit here and make prognostications about will this guy do this or won't this guy do that. And it's all just kind of fleeting stuff based on trends that we see, and it could go either the other way just as easily a lot of times.
I don't know, Gage. I'm right like 97% of the time. I don't know what you're talking about, but
97%.
Well, JK. It's especially bad with like there are a couple that I'm like. The really funny thing I think is when you're a fan of a team, but you've also written a ton of pieces, and at some point you have to like be relatively critical of players. And there comes like a tipping point where like you're like, man, I could be on Old Takes Exposed if this guy figures this thing out. But also I'm like pretty okay with that because like I'd like to see the Indians win a World Series. For instance, like Nelly Rodriguez, I have trashed on Twitter a couple of times as basically being a non-prospect. And like, because he has huge K issues. I just don't think he's a prospect, but whatever. But he likes every single one of those tweets. And I'm just like, man, I feel bad. First of all, I'm trashing this guy who's working really hard. Second of all, he just destroyed spring training with like 5 bombs and no strikeouts and 20 PAs or a couple bombs. I'm like, man, this one's going to eat me.
It's funny. You don't even – I still, even though I have this in the back of my mind, don't realize the reach of what you're tweeting because, like, for example, I was watching the Ohio State game on Thursday against South Dakota State, and I tweeted something about Caleb Wesson, their big man, the basketball player. And like an hour later, I get a response from Caleb Wesson's dad.
Yep.
I didn't.
Yeah.
It's like I think I said he was useless in the game because he played like 7 minutes or something like that. And the response is just something like, curious to hear your expert opinion on why.
Yeah, it's I definitely have trashed not trashed, but like I've just written so, and also it happens with positive minors pieces. Like if you do like a profile, like Thomas now suspended Thomas Pannone, I like did a profile on him and like his pitch mix and pitch strategy, and like his mom. I feel like every family member he's ever had favorited and or like tweeted it. Like I just think when you cover minor league players, like their families read everything. I used to trash Levon Washington, and Levon Washington's mom and girlfriend would get on the IBI message boards, and like there were other people too who would trash him, and she'd just go to town. And I used to trash Jesus Aguilar, which breaking, he sucks. He's really not that good. He's like a role platoon first baseman for anyone who thinks.
Right. I mean. The Jesus Aguilar thing's funny. He just never showed anything more than being just a average hitting first baseman potential, right?
Yeah.
I mean, posting 120 WRC plus and AA and AAA just not all that exciting to me as a first baseman.
Never that young for level. It's not that.
No.
No. That was. I mean, Sam had a good question. I get a lot of. I mean, we all get a lot of stuff wrong. It's just like, and I will say too, like, a little blog conversation here, but like, when you write as frequently as Gage and I do, and a couple others at WFNY and other places, there's just a reality too. Like sometimes you're really searching for angles. Sometimes you buy into like 40% of what you're writing and arguing. And so you have to just like kind of take a lot of losses, I feel like.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of times we're just trying to point out something that's cool and draw a conclusion from it. Like a cool dip or a cool noticeable spike in usage of a pitch or something. And a lot of times that's nothing. Like it's just a blip. So we're trying to draw conclusions from things that just aren't there in some cases.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like it's so true, especially like there's just this reality too. Like when you have 3 or 4 people who all take like analytical or like do some dives every time they write an article. Like if you write about Josh Tomlin 4 times and write about his usage, like there's a point to like a lot of what we do is like pattern searching. I feel like we're constantly searching for patterns and things and shifting patterns and things that don't fit a pattern. And I think that can be, you just find weird stuff that doesn't mean much, like a lot of the time.
So this is interesting. If you have nothing to write about, where are you going first? Like, are you looking at the splits? Or are you looking at different pages? Just as, like you said, notice outliers?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll do is, it's a good question. For pitchers, I always go to like, if I have nothing to write, the first thing I do for a pitcher is I look at how every one of their pitches graded out the last season. And then I go, did they underutilize anything? Did they overutilize anything? Then I go to usage. Overall, a lot of the time, like most of my story topics are sort of like I'll be watching a game. I'll be like, oh, that's kind of weird. You know, like,
yeah,
Cody Allen went curveball 0-1 or 1-0. That's super weird. How often does he do that? Should he do it more? And then I'm like, okay, let's write 1,000 words about this.
Your wife's got to love it.
Yeah, she's not a fan of mine right now. But she's having a 3 glass of wine, so I think we're okay.
Oh, sleeping on the couch tonight.
But how about you?
I do most of my writing either after. See, what I like you, I kind of like with the pictures, and Mike's picture stuff is great. If you aren't familiar with it, go to Waiting for Next Year and find it because he's got some great previews on guys like Carrasco and Clevenger. But I think the place that I most of the time start is on their directional, like the pull, center, opposite, contact, authority, and the profile shades of like how many fly balls and ground balls are they giving up. That's my favorite place to start.
See, I definitely always start there with hitters. Like I find like contact, placement, and quality is like, I think that's all we do with hitters now anymore. Or a lot of what we do.
The launch angle revolution, fly ball revolution, whatever you want to call it.
Which I feel kind of bad about because, man, I've written like 4 launch angle pieces in a row and trying to put another one together and it's putting me to sleep.
The Yonder Alonso launch angle piece was good, and he's a pretty significant bet for the Indians this year, considering the alternatives that were out there.
Yeah, I mean,
so we haven't touched on him at all on the pod. I mean,
you want to talk Yonder?
Yeah, we can wrap it up with Yonder.
After he disavowed the movement, Gage, he disavowed the movement. When the Indians
disavowed, I didn't even see
asked him a couple of questions. I'm sorry, Jordan Bastian. I met Jordan Bastian. Asked him a couple of questions, pointing him in a different direction. I really did think it was PR. I was joking. Ish.
But their bet is on Yonder being what he was in the first half last year. How much did Logan Morrison get? Was it $6 million?
I don't want to talk about it, Gage.
How much did Todd Frazier get?
6.5 guaranteed. Frazier got $17 million guaranteed.
It just seems like they miscalculated the market, and I'm not going to knock Yonder. I'm excited. I think there is something there with how his contact changes, but I mean, everybody miscalculated that market for Frazier, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, the Indians tried to beat everybody to the marketplace on, like, the fly ball, like the launch angle guys. I mean, I fully believe that they had a cheapish offer on Morrison, which would now be considered more expensive. I don't buy the 2 and 20 offer, but I think they offered Morrison more than he ended up taking. But I definitely think they tried to like pounce on that market quickly once Santana was gone, even though they kind of faux negotiated with Santana or didn't really at all. They just wanted to act like they did, which was quaint. But I think, yeah, I think they did. I think they thought they were beating people to a market by sort of like laying an offer on the table to Alonso and Morrison, the 2 fly ball guys, and then just getting one at a number they liked and closing it out. And they just didn't see that they could get Morrison for half the guarantees 3 months later.
And maybe I'm not lending enough credence. Maybe they really liked Yonder and found something there that they. But if it is true that they offered Morrison, that would lend us to believe otherwise.
Yeah. How much do you think of Carlos Santana's production Yonder Alonso can cover?
See, I mean, Santana's going to give you solid first base, 3 WAR, right?
Yeah.
And 130 WRC plus, 125, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think the reasonable expectation for Alonso is maybe 10 to 15 less WRC plus, and maybe 1 WAR, maybe 2 WAR. Is that what you're expecting from him if he's not hitting lefties all the time?
Yeah. So, how much credence do we actually give to somebody making a huge mechanical adjustment? Like, let's talk this out. Because last year, Alonso runs a WRC plus of 132. Santana runs a WRC plus of 117. Santana posted 3 WAR
down year for Santana.
What? Yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right.
And then we kill. I mean, largely, Alonso has sort of gotten killed for a second half. Let me look at the splits here. where we've been like, oh, pitchers figured out Yonder Alonso in the second half, which is probably not fair. They certainly made adjustments. But he ran a second half WRC plus of 113, which is basically 4 clicks lower than Santana's full year. And it's one that we've sort of killed Yonder Alonso for. Is that kind of weird?
No, I'm not even really killing him. He wasn't the same hitter, I guess. So that's more the point I'm trying to make. So when we only have one season frame of reference hitting at this clip, those 3 months at being slightly lower matter a whole lot to me in comparison to the most consistent hitter that the Indians have seen in decades.
Yeah. I mean, this is a homery take, but if you really, I think if you buy into Alonso's adjustments being sort of like real and unmuted, I think it's pretty easy to sell yourself on like a 120 WRC plus, which is like pretty close to what I would expect from Santana. And then you're basically just quibbling over defense. And I guess Santana steals more bases, which is pretty humorously a weird skill that Carlos has.
His 5 stolen bases a year? Is that his?
It's awesome, dude. I love it. I love it. No, that was my sneaky fantasy play the other day. I was like, hey, man, I just got that OBP and those 5 steals. You never know when they're coming.
3 of them are going to come in 1 week where you already lost steals by 15.
Stop it.
No, but I think you can make an argument that an Alonso or Morrison made a lot more sense for the Indians than re-signing Santana, and some people might hate on that. But if you look at what Santana got, which was about what we expected at $20 million per year over 3 years, and then you see how far of a dive the values for Alonso and Morrison took, really, you can make the argument that for 40% of the cost, I'm going to take a small downgrade in production and utilize that elsewhere. But it just didn't go elsewhere, so it makes it kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I think that's the really tough part of the sale. Like, to me, I think there's probably like almost a 30% chance that Alonso's better than Santana the next 2 years. Like, I think that's a legitimate chance. I think there's also like a 50% chance he's worse. And I also think there's a really good chance that he's like 90% of Santana for 40% of the price. But that's only so sexy when you're trying to win a World Series and you're not spending any of that money elsewhere.
Well, that's what got him Michael Brantley.
Yeah. Yeah. It all leads back to Brantley. I'm telling you. Everything leads back to him. Any conversation you have, you're like, oh, the bullpen's kind of limited. I wish we could have signed Trevor Cahill for $1.5 million, but we had to spend $12 on Brantley.
And Cahill's been garbage for the past couple of years. I mean, he had a good stretch there, but anytime you can take a reliever flyer on a veteran with a track record of decency at some point, you do it, right?
Yeah. What are you going to do, man? What are you going to do?
They weren't even looking like at the reliever stuff. Peter Moylan, there was some interest there.
Let's talk relievers. Talk shop with me for a second. Talk relievers. Like, do we want to keep Belisle? I want Ogando. Why shouldn't I want Ogando? He's carving hitters up this spring. He's got some of the best arm upside. Talk me out of Ogando.
I mean, I'm going to be with you on this one because I don't think we need the safe plays like I've gone over and over. And Ogando's the upside play. Belisle's the floor play. And it just seems like an easy decision for me.
I think you've made the comment before, but like, isn't Belisle just like Dan Otero when he's clicking?
Yeah. And that's a great skill to have, but they need a guy that's better than Dan Otero as a third option right now.
Yeah. I agree.
And I think the Indians, I'm going to repeat saying this until I go blue in the face, need to make the upside plays, forget the floor plays. Your floor is Kluber, Carrasco, Bauer, Clevenger, Lindor, Ramirez, right?
Yeah. All right. I have another fun game for us. I'm going to ask you about like a handful of players and whether they're going to be in the Indians organization 9 months from now.
9 months, okay.
9 months. Giovanni Urshela, will he be in the Indians organization 9 months from now?
No.
Eric Gonzalez.
Yes.
Yandy Diaz.
Yes.
Okay. Ryan Merritt.
No.
Sean Moramondo.
Oh, that's a stumper. Yeah, probably because he's still pitching in Columbus.
Rob Refsnyder.
There's no chance there, right?
Rajay Davis.
Let me get back to Refsnyder real quick. Even with Daniel Robertson last year, Francona loved him and he was gone by the end of the year, right?
Yeah, fine.
Davis, no, I don't think Davis, because anytime if they make any move at the deadline, say they grab an outfielder at the deadline, he's first on the chopping block, isn't he?
I don't know, man.
Trade Lonnie Chisenhall for parts.
I would always be down with that.
Parts as in like some flyer 29-year-old in single A.
Hey, man, just give me a reliever who throws 98 and can't throw strikes. We'll figure him out.
Ben Heller?
Ben Heller? Yeah. That sort of player. That time when the Indians gave up. What's amazing is, like, Ben Heller and Justice Sheffield are probably going to have more impactful big league careers than Clint.
The Yankees got a freaking haul.
They got Gleyber, like those two relievers. They get Gleyber Torres, Castro, who they flip. They get Frazier, Sheffield, Heller. Who was the fourth? Fierson?
Yeah. And then you also got guys who, like Dustin Fowler, who was a homegrown prospect who allows them to land Sonny Gray. You know, they just did it right. And screw the Yankees, but
it's the worst.
They got Torres from the Cubs they let Chapman go win a World Series for the Cubs and just signed him right back and you get to keep Torres. Like,
yeah, must be nice.
Yeah, so I want to get your thoughts on your little game. So, Gio, 9 months organization.
Still here. He's Lindor's boy.
Okay. Egon, Eric Gonzalez.
Egon.
One of those two is gone. We can settle on that, right?
Yeah, one of those two has to be gone. Please.
Davis.
Davis is gone.
Diaz.
This is where, like, I think Diaz is gone.
Trade?
Like,
he's still got some value.
I mean, I think he has some value. I think he's like a piece that a team's going to be interested in. I think he should stay, but I think there's something too, like, they're essentially blocking him with, like, nothing right now. I mean, he's had a ton of AAA plate appearances. Like, that's over. So, like, if you want to sort of, like, experiment with him as your, like, really useful bench bat, like, now's the time to do that. And if you're not going to do that, I just don't see how, like, holding him as a priority long term.
How many options does he have left? I don't know off the top of my head. You probably don't either, but
there's one left after the year. I mean, no, I just think it's actually kind of likely he gets dealt. I think it's likely another team looks at him as sort of like a really cool offensive project.
Yeah.
That has a ton of upside, and I think the Indians might be in a situation where they feel he's blocked and he's a good move. So I just think it's becoming increasingly likely that Diaz is dealt out of Cleveland.
When Shapiro gets him for Donaldson.
Yeah. Classic. I mean, if you can't get Brett Lowry, you go get Yandy Diaz.
No,
yeah.
I think we covered the topics pretty well tonight with what went on today in Goodyear with the cuts.
Yeah, I'm content.
as the season starts to get rolling, I feel like we'll have some. We'll be able to get more in depth on some of these things. We have some trends to work with, but we're only 10 days out now.
Yeah, we're closing in. Once that starts, we'll be diving deeper and deeper every day. If people can definitely keep tweeting at us about our crappy takes and questions you have or anything you want us to hit, we'll go from there. Follow our Twitter account at Corner Takes. I don't know. You'll get bad takes there because they're both from us. They're from both of us. That's about it.
Yeah, you never know who's coming out of that. Who's sending the tweet from that account.
Yeah, definitely. So that's it for this week's edition of the Corner of Hot Takes in Ontario. We'll see you next week.